Alrighty, hey there everybody. This is Itami here. I want to create a load of more works in progress for Nightmares, which is a project I've been working on, and I'm going to finish it before I continue working on Price High. Because I haven't really put too many works in progress, kind of shown anybody that I'm actually working on the game, and I want you all to know I am working on it. It's just a slow deal because I have to actually learn various scripting languages before I can actually work on this. So it's a slow deal, but I'm getting there, and I'm working on it, and hopefully by the end of next year I'll have, or by halfway through next year, hopefully I'll have a completed project for you guys that I can continue working on and making better. But I'm not going to release it for the public without like any kind of beta testing until all that is done. So essentially I'm going to create a new work in progress item, and it's going to be for my mapping, and it's essentially just going to be one of these. It's just going to be a pillar for the map. That's pretty much it. It's bumped, so it actually looks like the bricks are popping out, and it's nothing on the top here, nothing on the bottom. It's just a little pillar for your map, so you can attach it to like walls to make it look more like that, or attach it to one of these. That's essentially it. But it looks good in corners. It looks good in long stretches of walls. It kind of adds little inconsistencies, so that when you're stacking up wall after wall, eventually the texture is going to repeat so much it gets a little obnoxious. So like every other like repetition or so, you add a pillar, and that fixes that problem. So I know the exact dimensions and everything I'm gonna need for the walls that I use in my maps, so this will be fun. So you can see that it fits the wall perfectly. So yeah, got a wall here. It's not telling me my dimensions for some reason. Oh well. So essentially, I use Blender for everything. It's a fun little program here. Got a bit of a learning curve, but it's not too hard once you actually start learning. I export all of my models into .fbx, Autodesk FBX. They're like models that can be very easily support in animation. So I'm just going to start loading everything in there just in case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new file, and it'll create this. I'm going to delete the cube. I'm going to delete the light. I'm going to delete the camera. That's all that's left is that little cursor. That's because of me. So there's nothing left in here. I'm going to create a mesh and cylinder. That's what that is. I'm going to go to Object and scale this up to 250, and then 50, and 50. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Let's take a look at what this looks like outside of the cylinder. So what the cylinder looks like on the outside. We change the position back to 0, 0, 0. So that's what it looks like on the outside. I can smooth it, I can not smooth it, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to smooth it. I'm going to smooth it later. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in on it. I'm going to go into edit mode, go select a line, and then just select this one line here. I'm going to mark this as a seam. That's going to make it so that when I add the texture to it, it's pretty much just going to open that seam up and spread out the entire thing all the way around on the texture. So the texture will fit on every edge equally. You'll see how it works. So I'm going to go into edit mode, wireframe, so that I can see all that. And then select all these faces here. I'm going to create a new box here. And it's going to be UV image editor. Going to create a new, we're going to call it pillar, because that's what this is. Going to click OK. Going to go to image, open image. We can go to our assets folder where my stuff is. Going to find brick1.png because that's the texture that I'm using. I have created all the textures completely from scratch, and I'm going to add different kinds of this texture and kind of added consistencies and everything so it doesn't look like it's repeating so much. That's pretty much what this is going to look like. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to unwrap the texture onto this. So now you see that the texture is put on the image here. And so if we were to go back into, if we were to look at it as a texture, you could see that now the cylinder has a texture on it. But it looks kind of weird. So I have to actually edit this and mess with it a little bit. So I'm going to drag this up. I'm going to select all this and I'm going to drag it up to the middle here. And I'm going to scale it very large. So that it is consistently spaced on the image. There we go. So now you can see the texture getting a little more consistent on the pillar. Now I need to go back into edit mode and I need to scale this down again, but press X to scale it on the horizontal level. So that it's flat on the texture there. Let me zoom in a little bit so I can see what's going on with this texture here. Kind of drag it over to the left a little bit so I can get my textures lined up. You can see how they're not exactly lining up with that line. That will cause many issues later. So I'm going to drag it so that it's kind of halfway in between. I'm going to scale it up horizontally so that it's lined up with the texture. There we go, good enough. And now we've got our texture mapped on the pillar. Ta-da! It still looks a little funny. So I do this one thing. It's pretty much I scale it until it repeats to the point where it looks good. So I'm going to zoom in here and watch the top of this. There we go. Let's go back into object mode and check out our texture. Now we've got a pillar that is, for some odd reason, the texture here doesn't look as good, so I need to fix that. Just go into edit mode, zoom in, just pick it up and drag it a little bit. Let's scale it a little bit. There we go. That looks good. Now let's take a look at it in object mode. Now you can see that the pillar looks good again. There's nothing on the bottom, nothing on the top, nothing I can do about that. Oh, there is, but there's nothing I want to do about that because you're not going to be seeing the top and the bottom anyway. So yeah, there's a pillar there. Going to reset the location. Location is there. I'm going to add it. I'm going to export it as an Autodesk FBX. So there's untitled.fbx. I'm going to go back into assets. Now I'll go back to games. We're going to go to nightmares. We're going to go to assets, nightmares, models. Going to export it in the models folder as pillar.fbx. Export the FBX. Cylinder has a scale. Armature deformation will not work as expected. I did say that I was going to smooth it, but smoothing it is not really completely necessary because it looks round enough. So let's go into Unity here. And so now pillar.fbx is in my models folder. I can drag it over here. I've already added the bump mapping and everything to the texture, so it's already bump mapped when I drag it into the game, and there we go. We have a textured pillar here. We can attach it to walls and everything. Of course, I've got the other pillars that I've already imported mapped so that the texture is consistent with in size with the texture of the wall, and it's not here. If I really wanted to work on that, I could, but I've already got pillars made, and I was just showing you guys that I am working on the game and what exactly I'm working on. So that is only one of my base textures. It's going to be used in the intro to the game, which you can see on the website that I'm going to put in the description, which there's no real gameplay added yet. I'm still working on the gameplay. Where is it? There we go. It's over here. This is pretty much just a little hallway that I added. And you can see the texture that I'm using is one of the more kind of oldish looking textures, kind of old dungeony, basementy looking things. And it's gonna actually have something to do with the storyline, but I'm not really doing anything with it yet because I'm still working on the actual mapping. Like you can see, this is an older texture that I was using that I need to replace and stuff. And I've got problems here that I need to work on, like the textures aren't repeating properly. They're repeating properly on the walls, but I'll work on that. And yeah. You can see I worked on this side and it looks pretty good. So that's what I'm going to be working on, is mappings for the next little while. So just showing you guys I'm working on Nightmares. I'm going to finish Nightmares before I work on Price High. And yeah, see you guys some other time. Peace out.